Hey guys, Adam Manley here from Good Life Property Management, here today to bring you guys another great video. If you're an investor who has been self-managing their portfolio and are considering hiring a property manager to do that for you, here are 8 great things you should avoid when working with a property manager. So the first and probably my favorite is communicating with the tenant. So especially if you've been self-managing, this is going to be one that's very hard to let go of. But basically, this is the #1 reason why you're hiring a property manager, is to be that buffer between you and the tenant. So once you start interacting and communicating with them, you create that kind of communication triangle where they tell you one thing, they maybe tell us something different. So it just creates a huge mess. It also takes up headspace, when you're thinking about all these different tenant communications. So leave the tenant communication to us. If you're an investor who's considering hiring a property manager, this is probably the #1 no-no. The second one is involving yourself in the marketing or leasing process as well. And this is probably another thing that's very difficult to let go of if you've been self-managing your portfolio for a long time. But the most important reason why you want to have a property manager handling this part is to make sure there is consistency in the way that applications are screened. You don't want to be even unconsciously violating any fair housing laws, whether those are state, local, federal. So it's very important for that reason also. And then to also kind of tie back into #1, you just start to know the tenants again, and then you kind of get into that bad feedback loop or that bad communication triangle. So that's #2. You don't want to involve yourself in the marketing or leasing process. And the third reason to consider or to avoid when using a property manager is replacing appliances with different appliances than are existing inside of the property. So if you had a really nice stainless steel fridge that went out of service and was no longer working, and then you, as the investor, involve yourself in the appliance replacement process and then put the cheapest fridge that you can inside of the unit, it's going to create a not a good feeling on the part of the tenant. They're going to feel like you've cheaped out on them. It could also create issues down the road, maybe with additional repair expenses. So again, that's something you want to leave to the managers. They're going to make a great recommendation to you that's based on the cost of the appliance, what's there inside of the property already, and how that's going to affect the tenant. So this is something property managers do regularly, and they're very well trained to know the impact of something as simple as an appliance change has on a tenant. So that's #3. All right, guys, the fourth thing you want to avoid when using a property manager is not adjusting the rent during the marketing period. So here at Good Life, we've rented thousands of properties, and our average days on market is about 14 days. So if you're an investor and your property's been on the market for a week and we haven't received any applications yet, it's clear that the market has probably rejected that price, and we need to make some reductions in order to continue to generate interest on the property. So this is something you absolutely want to avoid. If the market has rejected your price, you need to adjust accordingly. The fifth thing that you should avoid when working with a property manager is cleaning the home yourself. As an investor, this is probably something you haven't thought of before, but it is absolutely one of the most crucial things. There are professional cleaning companies out there that do this, and I know that you aren't a professional cleaner. So leave it to the pros, get it done right, and have that peace of mind knowing that it was done by a professional. The sixth thing you should avoid is renting to friends or family during the management process. So as an investor, you may have had experience with this in the past, but there's an old saying, don't do business with friends or family, and I think that applies so strongly with property management. It's just something you want to avoid like the plague. Do not put a friend or family member. It can create a sense of, they potentially feel like they can maybe get one over on you or take advantage of certain situations. So it's just something we strongly avoid. Do not rent the property to a friend or family member while under management. All right, guys, coming down the home stretch, the last 2 things to avoid when working with a property manager. #7 is move-in specials. I love this one too. So a lot of times I'll see online owners offering some type of incentive to potentially get the property rented, maybe $500 off first month's rent, or some kind of move-in incentive to create additional interest on the property. And this always cracks me up because what they really need to do is just reduce the price. It kind of ties into number 4 as well. And it may seem like you're making more money or doing this to, make more money over the long term, but I can tell you from experience that this just simply does not work. You generally end up netting less over the course of the lease term, and often the move-in special isn't really appealing from a tenant's point of view. What's more appealing is just a lower rent amount. So scrap the move-in special and just lower the rent. That's number 7 for you. And finally, number 8, wrapping it up here, are ordering appliances yourself or handling the delivery process yourself while you're using a property manager. And again, as an investor, this may be something that's very difficult to let go of because you want to maintain control of the whole process, from ordering the appliance to making sure you got the measurements right, to the installation and making sure that goes smooth, and following up with the tenant, of course, to make sure everything was installed correctly. And when you're doing this yourself, you're just adding an additional layer of complexity to this whole process. Your property manager can handle this for you under a set amount. If you give them, hey, I need a stove or oven for under $1,000, or whatever that amount is, they can make sure that it gets done, replacing the appliance for something that's already similar to what the tenant's already used to in there, and they're just gonna get it done with a lot less back and forth. So those are 8 things that you should avoid as an investor when working with a property manager. Thank you.